Welcome back, guys. We are on episode 11 of Sports Talk Live. I have Coach Jacob here with me, and I must
What's up,
say,
everybody?
I'm back. I missed last week. I know you guys probably missed me a lot. I missed you guys a lot. Fun fact, I actually showed up, but Jacob never realized. Just gonna throw that out there. I was in the waiting room sitting there.
I
What do you
was
have
in
to
the
say?
zone with the weekly pick'em, and I was just too tuned in to my picks, and I was pumped to find out that I'm pumped right now to find out what happened with that. As by the way, but I was just in the zone. Sorry, Brian. Completely missed you.
So even though I wasn't here live to make my picks last week, I still made my picks as Jacob was talking. I typed them in the Excel spreadsheet we did. And fun fact, maybe it was good for me that I wasn't there because I finally beat Jacob. I mean, it took 3 weeks, but I beat you. So I'm
Okay.
closing the gap. I went 10-3 this week, while you went 8-5.
Oh my
So
goodness, rough week.
my best call that you weren't here to hear my hot take live was the Raiders over the Chiefs. Let's go. You know what?
That was something else.
I remember we were texting back and forth during that game. You had no faith in the Raiders. It was great. I loved it. The Raiders offense just looks on another level. I mean, their defense is pretty bad, but it's hard to say the Raiders offense is not a top 10 offense right now.
Yeah. They're the way that they came out, it was just, I don't know, man. Like I said, I was texting you, and I was definitely saying that they weren't going to be able to keep it up. They weren't going to be able to keep it up, but they did, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm now curious to see, did Kansas City just have a bad week? Was it fluky for them? Did the Raiders just have an amazing week, or are the Raiders? Are they for real? Are they legit this year? The Las Vegas Raiders? Are they?
I don't know, man. So my biggest knock on Derek Carr as a quarterback, being a Raider fan, is he doesn't throw the deep ball enough. But actually,
You can say that about a lot of quarterbacks.
You could say that about a lot of quarterbacks. But this year, Derek Carr actually has the most completions on passes 20 yards or farther downfield. He leads the league in those completions. So, I mean, granted, he had like 4 or 5 of them against the Chiefs this weekend, and that's why he leads the league now. But it is nice to see them starting to push the ball downfield to guys like Henry Ruggs. I mean, he made a huge impact. He had 2 catches for like 100 yards and a touchdown. And he had a 40-yard catch and like a 70-yard catch. Like he's just a big play threat. You got to be worried about, man. I'm excited to see his potential. But let's save football for the end like we normally do. I mean, I could talk about the Raiders all day, so you got to slow me down somehow. Luckily, it's their bye week this week, so you don't even have to hear me talk about them. But let's talk some basketball. Some big things happen in basketball, right? What happened?
We have some champions.
Ooh. We're going to play some Queen right now?
Champions. None other than the Los Angeles Lakers, which I believe is now their 17th title.
That's crazy, man. And
I believe they're now the most winningest franchise. Is that correct?
I believe so. I'm not up to date on my basketball championship.
I'm not mistaken, the Boston Celtics have 16. They were tied with the name. And now that they won, the Los Angeles Lakers now have the most amount of NBA titles than any other organization in the NBA, which is a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah, no, it was huge. I mean, that Lakers team, I think they just showed who we all thought they were during the season. They looked like the best team for most of the season, and they definitely proved that. I mean, the Miami Heat's a good team, but at the end of the day, I don't think the Miami Heat was too big of a threat to the Lakers.
Yeah, obviously. They put up a fight, but that game 6 was it was rough.
It was definitely rough for sure. I mean, Jimmy Butler, I think, is an elite talent. That team's really young. The Miami Heat's really young, and he needs another superstar type player next to him in order to beat a team like the Lakers.
Yeah, it was kind of unfortunate that, they were missing some, key pieces. Like their leading scorer during the bubble was Goran Dragic, and it was unfortunate that he was out. And then Bam Adebayo got hurt. But when they came back, it didn't make sense to me what was happening. Like with Anthony Davis, they needed to get him out of the paint. And the games that the Heat won, they were able to do that by putting in Kelly Olynyk, who's a stretch type of a big. So he was out more on the outside, forcing Anthony Davis out to cover out. But once Adebayo came back, they kept him in the paint because Adebayo's not a shooter of that sort. And it just kept Davis in, his in the area where he's the most impactful.
Yep.
And they didn't revert back to what they were doing when they won. So it was just, I don't know. I was kind of like, I get it. Adebayo's a guy, but you need to have that threat on the outside for Davis to get out of the paint and, make way for everybody else. With him right there, you're not – it's going to be a challenge. You're not going to get past that guy easily. So
yeah, I mean, the Lakers definitely they're a deep team with a lot of talent. I mean, we saw players like J.R. Smith, who, I mean, isn't like a superstar, but he's a solid player, not even play that much because that's how deep the Lakers are. So it's definitely interesting. The Heat had to get more creative in order to beat the Lakers, while the Lakers kind of just were able to play their game. So at the end of the day, I think the team with the better talent won. I'm glad for the Lakers, but we're both Warriors fans, and there's something coming up soon called the NBA draft. So what are you thinking about the draft? The Warriors are probably going to have a top 3 pick. It's not a right top 3 they're likely to get. Top 2 they're likely to get.
We have number 2 already. We have 2.
It's already been announced.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that. So with the number 2 pick, what are you thinking for the Warriors? I know there's names like the Ball. It's LaMelo Ball, right?
LaMelo Ball.
There's also James Wiseman. He's like
James
the
Wiseman.
center.
There's quite a few guys that are out there, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen because there's a whole lot of buzz about the Warriors may not even drafting a player at that position and trading away the pick. So if they trade away that pick, we're probably going to be expecting a big name, such as like everyone's saying Giannis. So that'd be interesting to see. I don't think the Warriors necessarily need him, but it would be a pretty cool addition to the team. According to reports that I've been seeing online, the Warriors are in the best position to actually acquire Giannis, but Giannis would have to request a trade and specifically request the Warriors. But I don't know. There's a couple good bigs out there. I know Dwight's going to be available. Dwight Howard. The Lakers are pushing to still keep him back, but the Warriors are now talking to him too. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen. With that position, if assuming that the Warriors keep the pick and draft somebody, I think it's all going to depend on who goes first. They're predicting that Wiseman might go first, but they're also saying Ball might go first. It kind of depends. The Minnesota Timberwolves have the first pick,
and they have a center already,
and they have a good center in Karl Anthony Towns. So I don't see them necessarily going for Wiseman. I think there's a good possibility that they end up bringing in. They probably pick up LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
And then they compare LaMelo Ball with D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns.
That makes sense.
Possibility. There's oh my goodness, now I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. I'm drawing a blank. But there's a few really, really good players out there that everyone's talking about. So it's kind of tough. There's people even talking about maybe Wiseman not even going that high, and he might even be in the top 10 still, but might not be top 5.
So I'm looking at a list. It actually this list has Wiseman as the number 7th player in this draft on the
Exactly. So that's what I mentioned, that there's people who are already announcing that he may not go and that Anthony Edwards may go early. So he's a player out of Georgia. It's going to be interesting to see where everything goes and what the Warriors are going to do with that. I am really, really curious. I think, it makes sense, in my opinion, for the Timberwolves to probably draft LaMelo Ball or Anthony Edwards because Anthony Edwards is a shooting guard and they do have a point guard in D'Angelo Russell, but LaMelo Ball can easily transfer back and forth from those two. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, if
Obi
I'm the
Toppin was
Warriors,
another one I was thinking of. Obi Toppin's a good player too. I'm not sure where he's going to go, but it'll be interesting.
yeah, I mean, if I'm the Warriors, I have to be looking at this as like, who's their biggest competition? Like, I don't really think their competition is going to be coming from the East. It's going to come from the West and the Lakers and the Clippers, right? The Lakers being the defending champs, the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they're still around. So I think they're more. From how the teams match up, I think the Warriors are more worried about the Lakers, which makes sense. They have LeBron, they have Anthony Davis. And the Warriors need to find someone who can cover Anthony Davis because right now on the Warriors roster, you can't really put Draymond Green on Anthony Davis. There's just too much of a size difference. And as good of a defender Green is, Davis is just too dominant and too big for Dave Green in a sense.
I hope Draymond doesn't see this.
Draymond get all
mad at you. He's
no, I think Draymond's a great defender, and I think he could do it. But it just
that's what everybody said when we were winning titles. He's too small, but look at him.
No, I get it. It just Anthony Davis isn't your typical offensive player either. He's a mismatch. He's a problem. So I think you almost need a bigger guy. And you could put Draymond on a LeBron. You could put Draymond on, I don't know what other scores they have that you have to be, or Kuzma even. But I think that's enough basketball for now. So let's talk about some baseball. We're in the NLCS and ALCS in the MLB, which means there's only 4 teams left. We have the Tampa Bay Rays and the Houston Astros squaring off in the American League. And in the National League, we have the Atlanta Braves and the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the Astros-Rays series, the Rays currently lead it 3-2. They're winning that series. They're actually playing right now, and I believe the Rays, yes, they are up 1-0. So the Rays are looking to close out that series against the Astros, which most baseball fans with a common sense do not like the Astros right now. So everyone's pumped for the Rays. Yeah, man, you cheat, you're not going to have the best reputation anymore. It happens. And I mean, for me, like I used to really like the Astros, man. I thought they had a lot of young, good talent, and I liked watching how they played. And then this whole thing comes out, and it's just like, oh.
They should have been banned from the playoffs for a few more years.
It's hard to do that. And I think the MLB was put in a tough situation. A lot of people aren't happy with the punishment that ended up happening, but it is what it is. So at the end of the day, there's no going back. What happened. We just got to move forward and hope it doesn't happen again, right? So, but saying that, I'm glad the Rays are beating the Astros. The Rays are kind of a team, kind of like the A's. They don't really have the big money players. They're just kind of put together. A lot of no-namer guys who came out of nowhere. And they're one of the better defensive teams in the league. They could pitch, and they've been hitting really well lately. I mean, they have a guy, an outfielder on their team who I've never even heard of before. I follow a lot of baseball, so the fact I haven't heard of them before is pretty huge. His name's Randy Arozarena, and he was batting 500 up until recently. I think he's dipped below that now because he had 2 bad games in a row. But batting 500 is no small feat. That's huge numbers. So let's go Rays. And then we got the Braves and the Dodgers. Are you a Dodgers fan?
I am not.
Oh, okay. You're an A's fan, right?
I'm an A's fan.
Okay, you have a Dodgers fan in your family, though. That's why I think I thought that.
I do.
Yeah, I've definitely heard you say it before. Anyways, the Atlanta Braves are winning that series. I think 2-1, 3-1, 3-1 now. So they had lost the 3rd game big. I think the Dodgers scored some absurd amount of runs in the first inning, like absurd amount. Corey Seager almost had a cycle by the 3rd inning. He had 3 parts of the 4 parts you need. He was just missing the triple. He had a double and a single in the first and then hit a home run in the 3rd. Like, that's just wild. The Dodgers just slaughtered the Braves, but the Braves came back yesterday and put up a good game, brought the series back. So it's going to game 5 tonight, hopefully. I mean, there's 3 Giants on the Braves. We got Pablo Sandoval, my boy Pablo, on the Braves playoff roster, and then 2 relievers who were both on the Giants last year. So it's cool to see them succeeding. Looks like you have something to say. What do you want to say?
I'm just listening to you. I don't really. What I was gonna say is all I know is I don't want the Houston Astros to win. I hope Tampa Bay beats them, and then moving on. I know you don't want the Dodgers to win. but I wouldn't mind seeing them finally not choke. That's all they ever do. But I think it might be cool for the Braves to make it as well. So as long as the Astros don't make it, I'm okay.
Yeah, the Braves have a lot of young talent and like Ronald Acuna, Freddie Freeman. He's not that young anymore, but I love watching Freddie Freeman play. He's one of my favorite players to watch. They have Dansby Swanson. Braves are a fun team to watch. That's what I'm getting at there. And I'm excited for them, man. I hope a Braves Rays World Series would be really crazy because nobody thought that coming into the year. So it'd be really cool to see two unexpected teams there. But I think it's finally time for us to get on to Week 6 NFL predictions.
Uh-oh.
So before we get into this, there was no Thursday night game this week. It got moved to Monday.
That was harsh on me.
That was hard? What'd you do?
That was harsh on me. I was so bored at home, like just doing laps in the kitchen. Like, what do I do on a Thursday night without football? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. It was definitely a weird Thursday. Like, I feel like my whole like routine was thrown off. I was lost. I was crying in a corner because there was no football. Didn't know what to do. But is there anything you want to say about last week to recap it, or is our Raiders Chiefs discussion enough for that? Raiders top 5 team in the NFL.
There's so much we can talk about last week. I mean, prayers up to Dak.
Yeah, man.
That was very unfortunate.
Like that. I had him on my fantasy team. Not that, like, in that situation, your fantasy team's not really important. It sucks to see a guy like Dak go through that because he's had a rough year. I mean, with what happened with his brother earlier this year. And just, he seems like a good guy. Every interview he does, everything. And the Cowboys, like, didn't want to pay him for the longest time. And then you see this happen, and it's just rough. I just hope he gets a contract after this year of what he's worth because he's going to lose value, it sucks to see, man.
Yeah. And then in other news, the Chiefs signed a new running back. Le'Veon Bell is now on the Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to be interesting to watch. And fantasy-wise, I don't know how happy I am.
Yeah, I mean, like I told you yesterday, from a fantasy aspect, there's two ways you could look at it. It's going to be 50-50 or it's going to be like 75-25 Bell. So you could sell high on Bell. You could keep him. It's a tough fantasy decision. It's kind of one you're going to have to make for yourself.
Here's my question. Do I sell Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
See, I wouldn't sell Clyde Edwards-Helaire because his value is so low right now. Everybody's thinking Le'Veon Bell's going to come in and take over the role. If you sell Bell now, you're selling him at his all-time low. And usually it's not great to sell people at their lowest value. Let him play 2 more games, see if he gets 10, 15 touches in them, and then try to trade him. That's what I would do. I don't have him in any leagues because I don't like drafting rookies that early.
Yeah, I don't either. But that league, for whatever reason, I accidentally missed the draft time by 10 minutes, and I missed my first pick.
Gotta love those auto drafts.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire and making him my number 1 running back, which I'm not sure I'm too happy about.
It's been rough, man. It has been. So let's get into this week's games. I'm excited. So we're going to start with Houston versus the Tennessee Titans. I know my pick. I don't think this game's going to be all that close, especially this week. But you go first.
I think I was losing you for a second.
Did I cut out? Oh, yeah. I think my internet connection is not the greatest right now. So for this first game, we have Houston versus Tennessee. I know what my pick is. Do you want to take this one first?
It's tough right now to select the Houston Texans, who have not been playing very well, to win against the undefeated Titans.
Yeah.
So I'm going to choose the Titans. But with that said, I think the Houston Texans are finally starting to find themselves. And it's taken a little while. Deshaun Watson just been rough for him lately, but I think he's finally coming into his own a little bit. And, you would expect it by now, especially with that huge contract he just got. But I think that this is a good game for him to see if they can turn it around and take an upset. But it's hard to go against the Titans right now, so I'm going to pick Tennessee.
Yeah, no, I'm picking Tennessee too. I mean, they looked just outright dominant against Buffalo, who a lot of people were thinking is maybe a top 5 team, and the Titans just showed up and steamrolled them. Like that game didn't even look close at all.
It did not.
So you have to go Titans. I mean, Houston, they looked better last week in a post Bill O'Brien world. Their offense looked better. They finally got Brandon Cooks involved, which having Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller going could be huge for their team. It'll open up a lot of plays. And I think David Johnson is still a key aspect, but at the end of the day, I think the Titans win that game, and I don't think it'll be really that close.
Agreed.
Next game up is the Baltimore Ravens against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, man.
The Philly Eagles playing a close to watch. Claypool for the Steelers, man. We'll talk about him, but that was crazy. And even the Eagles, they had that, what was it, Travis Fulham?
Yeah,
he had a huge week for them too, kind of out of nowhere. So it's fun to see these smaller guys, smaller receivers break out. We saw Justin Jefferson a couple weeks ago break out too. So I'm going Ravens here. I think they're the better all-around team. The Eagles are still a bit of a mess.
I agree with you there, and I'm also going to take the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. The Eagles, I mean, they have all the pieces, but Carson Wentz hasn't looked like himself. His receivers are still all banged up. It's a tough game to win, especially with how dynamic the Ravens can be. So the next game is the Atlanta Falcons against the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are missing their star running back in Dalvin Cook, even though they do have a good backup in Alexander Madison, who I'm excited to play because I have him in one fantasy league. And the Atlanta Falcons are also missing a star in Julio Jones. So what are you thinking for this game?
Come back to me, Julio. He's on my fantasy team. I've only gotten the privilege to use him for 1/4 of a game for the 4 weeks that I've owned him, totaling in 7 points. I need you back.
Dude, I feel your pain. I have Michael Thomas. I've gotten 3 or 4 points from him the whole season.
I don't want to talk about Michael Thomas right now. I traded away Ezekiel Elliott for Michael Thomas, and Michael Thomas decides to get himself benched the week before the bye week. Oh,
in a sense, that's okay because that means he's going to come back next week fully healthy.
Buddy,
even though he did lose my fantasy match,
fantasy team is hurting because of that. Michael Thomas, do not disrespect your teammates.
I mean, you're telling me, bro. I have Michael Thomas and Austin Eckler as 2 of my best players on one team. Yeah. That team is I'm 1-4 and I'm starting to look hopeless there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing well in that league. Coincidentally, I have Michael Thomas and I have Devontae Adams. Both of them been injured, but my team is still undefeated.
That's kind of crazy. I need to question the people playing in that league with you.
They're all ballers. Everyone's been in this for a few years.
Defeated in one league. And I smacked you this week.
You had one good week. But moving on to our pick'ems.
So Falcons, Vikings, who do you take?
I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings.
Ooh, so why are you going Vikings?
Because it's Kirk family member time, and he's right about to bring back the "you like that." I can see it already. So
the peak Kirk family member days.
Kirk family member, aka Kirk Cousins. I think again, Atlanta has the ability to turn it around, but without Julio, they're not the same offensively. They can zero in on the run game, and Matt Ryan, he'll get the ball to Calvin Ridley or Russell Gage here and there. Calvin Ridley's been doing pretty well, but overall, it's just not the same impact with that offense without Julio. And their defense hasn't been great either. They've been making too many mistakes. So I know the Minnesota Vikings are only 1-4 as well. So this game can go anywhere. It can go in any direction. I am going to take the Minnesota Vikings, though. I just think overall, they're a little bit better of a team at the moment. I
am going to get burnt by the Falcons again, but I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons to finally get a win.
That's going to be interesting.
Minnesota's cornerbacks have been brutal this year. They've been so bad. Losing Dalvin Cook, even though I think Alexander Madison's really good, I don't I still have questions about the Minnesota team. And I mean,
As
you
do
just
I.
call the top 3 receiver mediocre, I feel like. And the disrespect you just handed Calvin Ridley. That guy has been flat out dominant this year. He makes
I just told you he's been doing work. I just said that, but
yeah,
but
you're not
the
putting enough
offense is still
respect
not
on
the same. It's obviously not enough to get them a victory.
Well, I think that has more to do with Matt Ryan being a little bit past his prime, but I think he will be able to put it together against the poor cornerback play of Minnesota. So let's go on to the next game. We have the Cleveland Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is an interesting matchup because you have a dominant defense against one of the I would say the best running game in the league right now. Even though they lost Nick Chubb, I think with Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson, they're still definitely in the top 10 running the ball. Like it's still an impressive unit. It's a tough one, man. I don't know where to go with this one.
It's going to be interesting. Both teams have 4 victories. As you know, Pittsburgh did have to take that early bye, so they're 4-0, where the Cleveland Browns are 4-1. Who would have thought the Cleveland Browns were 4-1 right now? Who would have thought that would be happening?
It's that running game, man. That running game.
But I'm going to take Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I just actually typed Pittsburgh in for me too.
That steel curtain, man. I think that they can still bring it back. I like what they're doing offensively, and you know, Claypool, for example, 4 touchdowns, and
yeah,
he just had a breakout game, huge breakout game. If Deontay Johnson's out again, he's possibly going to go off another time. Who knows? So, you know, that Steelers team is is surprising right now. They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Claypool he's like a small tight end, big receiver. If you watch him play, he's so strong out there, and he looked incredible last week. He really did. I wasn't able to get him on any of my fantasy teams, and I'm kind of sad about that because he looked so good. I'm going to go Pittsburgh because their offense has been rolling, and I think their offense is good enough to put up with Cleveland's dominant offense because I don't trust Baker Mayfield to be able to throw the ball well enough late in this game when I think it'll be close. So I'm going to take Ben Roethlisberger and the dominant Pittsburgh defense. The next game we have is the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Indianapolis Colts. This is kind of a weird game because the Colts has definitely looked like a top 3 defense this year, while Phillip Rivers has looked like maybe the worst quarterback in the NFL.
Oh, man.
Phillip Rivers, I
wouldn't give him the worst. Have you seen Daniel Jones lately?
Yeah, Daniel Jones looks bad, so he's not the worst, but Phillip Rivers is pretty bad, man. It's crazy to think they gave him all that money. Is it time to go to Jacoby Brissett for the Colts?
Well, I wouldn't want to give up on Phillip Rivers right away. So I'm actually going to take the Colts on this one. You know, I think the Jonathan Taylor time is still yet to come. We've heard a lot of, you know, that there was going to be that running back situation is crazy, and I can talk about it quite a bit. But we heard, you know, it was going to be a timeshare with Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, and now it's not Marlon Mack now, Jonathan Taylor, and I can't even remember the other guy's name at the moment. Nyheim Hines, and I think, you know, he's kind of just starting to fade out a little bit more, and they've been throwing the ball quite a bit. But if you look at their upcoming schedule, they have a lot of good matchups, and I have faith in the Colts to actually do something with Jonathan Taylor. So I'm going to take them over the Cincinnati Bengals.
You sound like a Jonathan Taylor owner trying to rationalize him popping.
I only have him in one league,
but
actually I have him in 2.
I think Jonathan Taylor is going to fall victim to what Todd Gurley did at the beginning of his career, where Jared Goff was not anything teams were scared of, and they just stacked the box because they didn't think Jared Goff could beat them over the top, and it made it hard for Gurley to get anything done at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of going to be the same thing with Phillip Rivers. Is we saw Phillip Rivers have a horrible season last year with the Chargers, lose them a lot of games that they should have won.
Like they've already played some of the better teams that they're going to play against.
This is
defensive wise. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
I think teams will start to stack the box against them because they are not scared of Phillip Rivers. He's not the same Phillip Rivers we watched for so many years. He's just not the same player anymore, and it sucks to see. I think he has a chance to be Hall of Fame, but that's questionable because he never made it too far into the playoffs. He's kind of like a better version of Tony Romo in my mind. Great regular season quarterback, kind of struggled in the postseason. I'm going to go Cincinnati here. Last week, we saw Joe Burrow have his worst professional game against the Ravens. He looked confused and scared against the Ravens defense. My bad. I think he'll get back on pace against the Colts. He may not have the huge passing game he had like he was before the Ravens because the Colts still are a top defense. But I think he will be just good enough to get past Philip Rivers and the Colts. On to our next game. We had the Detroit Lions versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. What are you thinking for this one?
I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars. And
interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have too much faith in Detroit at the moment. If they're not passing heavy, they're not doing much. And
I agree. I'm actually
Jacksonville hasn't been that great of a squad this year either. But I feel like they've came close and missed a few narrow ones. So I think that they're gonna bounce back and get another victory.
Yeah, so I think these teams are actually very similar in a lot of ways. They both have a rookie running back, James Robinson for the Jaguars, who's looked really good especially for an undrafted free agent. It's a really cool story. And then we have DeAndre Swift on the Lions, who's just been getting a little bit more work every week. He's been looking really good. They still have Adrian Peterson, so hopefully he fades out a little more. But I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions.
You must own Swift.
I don't. I actually do have Swift in a couple leagues, but I think the Lions having
That's the only reason why you would want all day Adrian Peterson out.
If you think Adrian Peterson is the same player from his prime, you're delusional.
That's not what I said.
It's better. I think Swift is better right now. That's a different discussion for another day. I think the difference comes down to Kenny Golladay playing and DJ Shark not playing. I think Gardner Minshew has looked like a different quarterback when DJ Shark is not in. So I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. I'm just going to put Carolina at you.
You already know. You already know where I'm going.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. I mean, their offense has been looking better since Nick Foles has been there. And I still don't think Carolina is as good as their record is. On to the next. We have the Washington Redskins against the New York Giants. This is the best game of the week, right? Two of the worst teams playing. Who wouldn't want
game of the week?
I'm going to go with the Washington football team. I almost said their old team name. Who are you going with?
I was going to go Washington football team, but just to go against you right now,
you're believing
I'm going to go with the G-Men.
Oh, man, that's rough. I think Washington's a better team by far.
That's a rough one. I don't
think much of Kyle Allen, but I think
Can I change my pick now?
Nope, you locked it in.
Locked in the G-Men. All right, G-Men.
You want to change it?
I'm actually streaming the Washington football's defense in one of my leagues. So this is going to be interesting.
Do you want to change it then?
No, let's just leave it.
Okay. Next game then, Denver Broncos versus the New England Patriots. The Patriots are getting Cam Newton back. Denver might have Drew Lock back. That situation's kind of not clear.
I'm going to stand by though, because it was just announced today.
Yeah, true.
That the Patriots had another COVID-19 test. That is.
Yeah, and I mean that all goes back to contact tracing, where they figure out who you're near. The Raiders had someone test positive before the game last week, and Maurice Hurst. And
it would come from the Raiders.
And he wasn't in contact with any of the other players when he got it, so he's just been isolating by himself. Kind of like the Cam Newton situation. It was just a one-off player.
Yep. I'm going to take the New England Patriots.
Okay, that makes sense. Next game, we have the New York Jets versus the Miami Dolphins. We saw Miami come out and look dominant against the Niners next week. So I'm taking the Miami over the Adam Gase Jets. I'm not a fan of Adam Gase. If you've ever heard me talk about football, I think he's the worst coach in the NFL. I can't believe he wasn't the first coach fired. They literally have not won a game yet. They look awful. He said he wasn't misusing the best running back in the league before they cut him and Le'Veon Bell. It makes no sense. Very weird situation. I'm going Dolphins.
I'm going Dolphins as well. Fitzmagic is going to have a great game against this defense. I think Preston Williams and Devontae Parker are going to have a great game as well. What's going on in New York?
Yeah, both teams haven't won a game yet. This is the first time ever the New York teams have combined to start a season 0-10. Rough year.
I can't believe I'm picking the J-Man.
Yeah, I don't know what
I picked the team for New York, and these guys, come on, New York, do something about this.
Speaking of Miami real quick, it will be interesting to see if we see Tua this year. We've seen Herbert and Joe Burrow come out and find pretty good success this year. And I mean, at one point, everyone thought Tua was the best quarterback coming out before he had his injury. So that will be something very interesting to monitor. They have a bye week coming up next week, so maybe that'll be his time in the bye. I mean, we've seen Fitzpatrick get benched for rookie more than once in his career. So even though Fitzpatrick's not playing bad, if they lose this week, you may see Tua out after the bye.
Mm-hmm.
Next game is going to be the Green Bay Packers against the Tampa Bay Bucks. I almost said the Tampa Bay Rays from baseball earlier. Who do you have?
I think we all know where I'm going with this one, and we're going with Aaron Rodgers and the Cheeseheads.
That scare me. I mean, I'm going Green Bay too.
Yeah, they really do. Their tight end Robert Tonyan with 3 touchdowns this past week. He had a huge game. We're gonna see if Aaron Rodgers can keep that up. I believe Devonta Adams is returning this week.
Yes, I believe so.
Finally.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that team.
Yeah, I think Green Bay just has more talent, or maybe not has more talent. I think they're just a little younger than Tampa, and I don't know. I just think coming off a bye, they'll have
That's the right word.
Next game, we have the Los Angeles Rams against the 49ers. The Rams haven't looked as dominant as they have in the past, but the Niners looked absolutely brutal last week. So I'm not picking the Niners to rebound. I'm going to pick the Rams to win this game.
I agree with you there. I am taking the Los Angeles Rams to beat the San Francisco 49ers, who just do not look like the team that was on a quest for 6.
Yeah,
they really don't.
Team has been rough. Next game, we have 2 teams trying to have a huge bounce back week after taking their first loss on the season.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Both of these teams had disappointing losses. The Chiefs got smacked by the Raiders, and the Bills got smacked by the Titans. Neither of those teams looked like themselves last week, so they're both looking to get back on track. Who do you have here? This is a tough one.
I've been picking Kansas City, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm taking the Chiefs over the Bills. This game could go anywhere, especially considering what happened. But I'm not convinced that the Buffalo Bills have the run game. They definitely don't have the same kind of run game that the Raiders did. The Raiders did a good job of developing that run game, which opened up the pass. And, they're going to be depending on Josh Allen to move a lot. And, the Kansas City Chiefs are used to mobile quarterbacks. Look who they practice against every day. So, I think that it's going to be a good game. I think the Bills can pull it off, especially considering what we just saw. We know that, the Chiefs are human after all. And but I'm going to take the Chiefs on this one.
Dude, something crazy about the Chiefs is before that Raiders game, the Chiefs had not given up more than 20 points on the year. Yep. They were one of the most dominant defenses, which nobody really thinks about when you think of the Chiefs. And then they gave up 40 plus to the Raiders. Like, think about that. That's insane. Just shout out my boy putting up 40 against the Chiefs. Gotta love it. But it was fun to watch. I think a key for the Bills is John Brown being healthy. I think if Stephon Diggs is your only healthy receiver, it makes it easy for defenses to key on him, and Stephon Diggs is less effective. So I think John Brown being healthy is a must for the Bills to have a chance in this game, and they need to be able to control the clock. The Raiders did a great job of running the ball with Devontae Parker and Josh Jacobs. Devontae Parker is the number 2 running back, finished that game with like 60 rushing yards. The Raiders were just able to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, and that's key. So we'll see what happens, but I'm also taking Kansas City to bounce back. I think they're upset after getting smashed by the Raiders, and I think they'll come back and have a huge game. To finish off the week, we have the Arizona Cowboys. I'm taking the Arizona Cardinals here. I think the Cowboys may have a rough game without Dak Prescott. I think Andy Dalton will eventually settle in and be decent for them, but I don't think it will be right away. There will definitely be a learning curve. The receivers have to get used to Dalton. Dalton has to get used to them. Their best chance of winning this game will be Ezekiel Elliott, which isn't the worst situation to be in. Zeke is a really good running back, but I think Arizona will be able to best them this week.
Yep, I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals on this one. Without their quarterback, this Dallas team is going to have to rely on Ezekiel Elliott a lot more. And I can already imagine the Cardinals, stacking the odds against Ezekiel Elliott to force Andy Dalton to have to do the work. And we all know the type of game that Andy Dalton can play. We also know, how his struggles, the trials and tribulations of Andy Dalton, their ups and downs. So we'll see. I think I think he was a good fit as their backup, and he's not a bad person to come in to take over Dak's place. But I just don't see them overcoming the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Dalton's definitely one of the better backups in the league. Like, you can't be upset with having him be your backup. There's definitely worse situations you could have been if you're the Cowboys. But I don't think Dalton will be the guy right off the bat. I mean, we'll see. He had a rough year last year. Philip Rivers had a rough season last year, and Tom Brady had a rough season last year. Well, we've seen Tom Brady come into this year with success, and we've seen Philip Rivers not really succeed this year. So we'll kind of see where Dalton falls in that situation of veteran quarterbacks on new teams.
Yep.
So, guys, that is it for episode 11.
11 already.
Did I cut out? Oh,
I think we lost Coach Brian. There we go. We got him back. But it's time for the outro. Thank you all for tuning in. It's a pleasure having you all. Thank you for your support. Make sure you follow all of our STEM class videos, our coaches' corners, our golf classes. We have programming coming up this week, starting on the 19th. So if you want to get involved with after-school programs, stop by. A lot of cool activities we're going to have planned for you. A lot of fun. It is absolutely free. Don't forget to register ASAP. All right. You can find a registration on the web. You can give us a call.
Really trying to grow.
You can give us a call, send us an email. Definitely get a hold of us, contact us, reach out to us. We'll be glad to have you join us for our on-site programming beginning next week, October 19th. This is Sports Talk Live. I'm Coach Jacob. That's Coach Brian, and we out.